to another episode of Chanel in the City on iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Chanel Omari, and I have such an exciting special guest here today with us. It's a privilege and an honor to be interviewing her. She is a legend, really. She is the creator and host of one of the most iconic TV shows on our screens, Fashion Police on E. You guys all know that show. She's a comedian, actress, and the host of her new awesome podcast we're all loving, Melissa Rivers Group Text, airing now on all podcast platforms. Please welcome the beautiful, the amazing, the legend herself, Melissa Rivers. How are you today?
Oh my God, I'm not dead. I can't be a legend.
Okay, so can we talk about that? Because a lot of people either get, I mean it with all due respect, of course, because to me, I've grown up looking up to you and just following your career. Kind of talk to us about, like, is it an insult for celebrities to call them a legend? Like you said.
No,
Okay.
no. I think for some of them, it's absolutely entitled. Like they should be. Meryl Streep is a legend. Barbara Streisand is a legend. Me? Nah. You know,
Oh,
it's just like, I think to be called a legend in your lifetime is a huge compliment, and I think there are about maybe a dozen people who should have it.
yeah, I like that. It's good that you're educating us, because some people, we to certain people are legends, right? But it's funny how you said I'm not dead yet. So,
Yeah.
and your mother, God rest her soul.
She was a legend.
Yes,
She gets the moniker.
amazing. Let's go into how you've been. Obviously, because I hadn't talked to you obviously since the passing of your mom, and it's been a loss for everyone. How have you been during COVID, coping with the loss? Just through everything. How have you been?
Well, it's been almost it's 6 years, almost 7 years. So, um, my life is obviously leveled out. You don't want to be laying on the floor, incapacitated this far past it. That would
Right,
not be healthy.
right,
Um, COVID, I was quarantined with my son
right.
and our dogs.
How was
Yeah.
that?
It actually worked out okay.
Yeah,
He had only finished his first semester at college, so that kind of, that sucked, was suddenly having to come home, just as for both of us, as I finally had gotten adjusted to him not being there, and he had finally had his first taste of real freedom. So there was a little butting heads. But no, it worked. We did a divide and conquer.
I love
You
that.
know, we did a divide and conquer. I took like the mornings with the dogs. He took the evenings with the dogs. I did the dishes. He took out the trash. We really did a major divide and conquer. Laundry, we just split. If you were coming downstairs, you brought your laundry down. When there was a big enough pile in the laundry room, you put it in. Whoever was near the dryer flipped it in. And at first, I was like all like folding and bringing it upstairs and all that. And then it just became separate piles in the laundry room, and we'd be getting dressed in the laundry room. I think like a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen. God bless him for listening to you, because I had to move in at 36 years old with my parents. And my Jewish mother wouldn't let me touch a thing. And even if but I also complained back. I'm like, oh, she's doing it for me anyway. So it's good that you're teaching him so he can do his own laundry, and he can grab the tasks equally with you. He doesn't expect you to do everything for him just because he's home. So that's cool.
Well, I think that first semester at college helped.
Yeah,
He found out that, as I used to say to him all the time, he would leave his clothes on the floor. I'm like, it's the magic hamper. Dirty things come in, they come back clean. If it does not go into the magic hamper, it does not get clean. So, you know, in college, he learned quickly how often you have to do laundry, and he got really good at it and all that. But yeah, during quarantine, we did the divide and conquer.
I love that. Talking about, you having a kid, you mentioned recently to People magazine that you wanted to maybe have another child and adopt a child, preferably. Talk to us a little bit about that journey. How's it going, and why? Why did you decide now that you want another
Um,
child?
well, I've been thinking about it for a very long time. I'm thinking about it for about 6 years now. Um, and certain times it feels like the absolute right decision. Certain times it doesn't feel like the right decision. It's obviously not something I'm taking lightly. And I would say I'm about 80% there. What really stops me is, you know, would it be fair for the child to have, unfortunately, like now a little bit of an older parent, is it going to be, not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm certainly very active and, a goer, but it's a lot to think about. And there's a lot of very important things to think about. And yeah, there's a few things I'm still grappling with.
I like that you're being honest too with the situation, and you're letting people know, yeah, this is something I want, but there's other factors that come into play. So I'm trying to
Right.
be responsible, not only for myself, but because I was gonna,
It's
yeah, sorry, go on, because I
No,
want
no,
to.
it's it because it's a huge responsibility. And it's something that I really do want to do, but I really have to step back and say, is my life in a place where that's the best for another human being?
Right. Right. And which is, then that's what I was going to ask you. Women in general, my age and older, around your age, who want to have kids, but we feel like either a biological clock is ticking or has ticked.
Yeah.
What's your advice? I mean, how to like handle that pressure, or how to make that decision without regretting it, I guess, right? Because we all want kids. It's not that, or some of us don't, but some of us do, and that's being a woman in nature. So talk to us about that stuff.
I wish I had listened to my mother, who wanted me to uh retrieve eggs while I was in my 30s. And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And now I'm like, "Fuck, I should have done it." You know? But, so be it. Again, you know, I am very close to yes, but there's a few things that still keep me up at night.
Anything you want to share with those things that keep you up?
Well, yeah, it's just, you think about your life and your lifestyle and where you are in your life and what you want and what you want your life to look like. And those are big, big decisions.
Right,
My
right,
son's
because
my son's a junior in college,
right,
and you know, I there's big life choices,
right. You're also
that, and
still a
that's one of
comedian.
them.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Pardon me?
Sorry, I was gonna say. Sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say you're also a comedian. You also do stand up. You also
No,
do
I don't
act.
do stand up.
Oh, you don't do
I've
stand
never
up?
done stand up. Nope.
Oh, I'm shocked. Why did I? You should be doing stand up. A
No,
tour.
I'd rather
Um,
not. No,
let's go into. Okay,
stand
so
ups are crazy people. They're crazy people.
we are. We are.
I'm too sane. I'm too
Melissa, I thought I was the
balanced.
only one. Thank God you're vouching that I'm not crazy.
You know, there I everyone's like, "Oh, you should do it." It's like I open myself up to enough criticism and judgment and comparison anyway.
Right.
Why would I do something so absolutely masochistic?
That's true. You're right, because there is a masochist side to all of stand up that people don't realize. It looks funny and perfect on the outside, but it's a whole different ballgame than the entertainment industry in general. Would you say?
And I've already spent the majority of my life on the road,
Right.
and it's not all star suites and, you know, limousines. It's a
Yeah.
lot of crappy nights and a lot of crappy places.
Yeah.
So, again, I've already done enough years on the road growing up and then traveling all over doing, for E and other networks and other shows I've worked for. At one point I'm like, nah, I don't know if I want to live out of a suitcase anymore. And by the way, that all feeds into my decisions,
Right.
because I always think, well, what if I did get a show that has me traveling all the time? I still have those thoughts. And I was fortunate enough with Cooper that I could afford and was on a show and in a position that I could just take him to work with me or take him on the road with me. I don't know if I would be afforded that luxury again.
Right. Yeah. No, these are really normal, like I would say, right, challenges, just debates in your own head. And And I love that a lot of people don't think like you or me though. They're just like, ah, we'll have the
Yeah.
baby.
And at the time it was perfect timing with Cooper. You
Right.
know, I knew I was trying to get pregnant. I was having trouble getting pregnant and I had already had a miscarriage, blah, blah, like all this different stuff. So it's like, I was in a place of my life where I could have and do all the things I wanted to do with him and not feel like an absentee parent. If I was shooting, I was fortunate enough to have a nanny. She would bring him to have lunch with me. Or I would bring him to work with me and then he could hang out in my dressing room and there was someone to take care of him and watch him. I was very fortunate at the time that I had him. And that's one of the things I think about when I start thinking about having adopting a child is I have a bunch of shows that I'm developing and or producing that are not really studio based.
Right.
Am I going to be able to do what I did? And would it be fair to?
Yeah. No, these are all good questions to ponder over, not really rush into. Because again, if you're going to adopt, you're going to adopt. So if you adopt and you decide in 5 years from now you want to adopt, you can still. That's the luxury of adopting, right? When you make your decision, you can still do it,
Right.
even though it's a hard process. I heard adopting is a
Yeah,
journey.
and it should be a hard process. I think
Yeah.
it
Right.
shouldn't be like gee, you're not going to the shelter and getting a puppy.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Of course.
You, it should be a very serious decision, and it should be a process.
And how does Cooper feel about it? If you were
Cooper's
to,
just happy with anything that gets me from staring at him and bugging him.
yeah,
He
of
is
course.
all about mommy being distracted.
Yeah. A
He is
smart man.
all about that.
Smart man. Has he started dating? Because I was going to ask you.
Oh, yes. He has a wonderful girlfriend.
Oh, and how do you feel? And you feel clearly you feel good about her because you just said she's wonderful. How's that dynamic though? He's close to you, and then he has a girlfriend. Are you the cool mom? You know.
Well, I think anyone who, the cool mom has a lot of bad connotations. I like to think I'm not a normal mom, but yeah, I like to think cool mom, but yeah, I'm not drinking with them.
Right.
I'm not a
Right.
cool mom like that, but I'm a cool mom in that I'm realistic about where he is in his life. He's 20 years old. I'm going to say your girlfriend, if your girlfriend can't stay over or you have to sleep in separate rooms, he's 20.
Right.
Because what he'll do then is just go stay at her house or at her apartment or whatever it is. So and again, that's with this one. The other ones, the previous ones, not so much. This one is like an actual legitimate, lovely human being. So he's also discovered that I'm much more amenable to things with someone who is good.
Yeah.
And I hate
Yeah.
using that word, but you know, and she's super respectful, super lovely. She even went on a vacation with us.
Wow. Yeah. I believe that you're supposed to give the kids the freedom because the more you're strict, the more you rebel.
But I mean, I have friends who still don't let their kids, if their significant other comes home with them or comes out to visit during the summer, they can't stay in the same room. But
Wow.
at this point, I'm like, with COVID and everything that's gone on, like what the hell, They're not
Yeah.
it's not like they're not staying together when they visit each other at school.
Right. And that's where that's important, where I like that, where you're being realistic. That's what makes a good mom, really, is knowing your kids' needs, trusting them, and then being realistic about the situation. Not because once you fantasize and you want a specific thing, sometimes that could be trouble for the
Right.
kid.
And also it's definitely based on this is the first time I've ever allowed that.
Right. Right. It's not like you've allowed it right before anyway. So it's like because he's of age and it makes sense, all in
He's
moderation.
20, she's 21, it's they're adults.
Right. And in terms of the fame thing, because you've been in the public eye, because his grandmother's been in the public eye, has that ever worried you, or have you ever had talks with him about the right people to choose to be in his life, or has that never come up?
No, we actually just had this discussion a couple days ago about actually about his girlfriend who I said, "It's so nice that someone is with you for the right reasons."
That is cool. That is
But
cool. Yeah.
I can't guarantee that about some of the other ones.
Right. Of course. Of course. Let's go back to, we were talking about the comedy thing, because it's interesting to me, you grew up with your mom being in comedy. When did you know, hey, I don't want to be a comedian. I want to be more of a host, an actress, and a producer, because you've produced and been an executive producer on multiple amazing shows. It's just fascinating to me that a lot of us do go after what our parents have done. You took your own path. Talk to us a little bit about that journey. How did that happen?
Um, it just kind of happened, I was started on the acting route. I was studied with a very famous acting coach named Sandy Meisner. And then while I was studying with Sandy, I also had my first real job. I'd had internships my whole, from senior year in high school on. So that wasn't, I had experience. And while I was studying with Sandy, I had to get a job. And I ended up getting a job on a show called Rescue 911, which was like the first reenactment show.
Yeah.
And so I was doing both at the same time. And I started as a research assistant. Like I really learned from the ground up. And I've been an intern at Entertainment Tonight. I'd been in entertainment in guest relations at NBC. I mean, I had been all over the place. I had been an intern at CBS News. I was really all over the place. So I started doing that. And in the middle of that, someone called me and said, "Would you like to audition for MTV? Do a screen test?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" And then all of a sudden I got MTV. So there was never really like this straight path.
Right.
It all kind of zigzagged all over the place. And um, so comedy was just never on the docket. Being a stand-up was just never on the docket. Producing was always on the dock. Producing was always in there.
Right. That's cool. And do you feel like, because everyone thinks, oh, if you have a parent in the industry, if you none
It
of that
might get
helps.
it might get you in the door
Right.
because people are curious,
Okay.
which isn't so good either.
True.
They want to see if you're a total freak of nature. It's not going to get you the job. And if you get the job, it's certainly not going to make anyone let you keep the job.
I love that. That's so true. I
You
think some
still have to you still have to you might get an interview, but or an audition, but you're not going to necessarily get the job, and if you get the job, it's not going to make you keep the job.
Did you feel like you were held towards a different standard to work even
Absolutely.
harder
Absolutely.
to prove yourself? Right.
I had to work harder. I had to be uh the expectations. I knew that the expectations were high, but it was the expectations that I would fail.
Right. Of course, that's a normal, right. Of course, that's so normal to feel that way.
Right. So I always went above and beyond. I was the most prepared. I was on time. I would show up, I think, oh my God, I up until a couple years ago, I think in my entire career, I've ever missed maybe a dozen days of work. And only because I was always very sick. There was one time where my mom was visiting and I was getting into hair and makeup and I have terrible migraines and I had one start and I in the kitchen and I literally started throwing up. And my mom's like, oh, and she's like, well, we had to shoot together. She's like, I'll just do your part too. I'm like, no.
Right.
But literally, that was the first time I think I called into work too sick to go.
That's a great,
But
I mean, and that's a great excuse when you're like
I'm
physically.
projectile vomiting. Nobody
Yeah.
wants me.
I think that, right. I think that's when you
Yeah,
cut it
nobody
a
wants
wrap a
to be
day.
around me. But something is I literally, and every time I show up, I do my best effort to deliver.
Right.
Because I'm still waiting, even after all these years, for people to say, "Oh, she's not nice," or "She's ill prepared," or "We were disappointed." I will always show up and give 100%.
I love that. And that's interesting that you said that, because a lot of us from a, like, whoever's been in the public eye at some point, a third feels that way, I think, where we're waiting for someone to say, ah, you see, I told you so, told you what they wrote about her was true. How do you cope with that mental health wise? Because I'm still going through therapy about how to not care what people think. How do you cope when people
Oh
do
my
that or
God, I
say that?
don't. I get into bed and take a Xanax.
Yeah. That's
You
what
know,
I need. I need my Xanax back. That's what I
I
need.
need Xanax and a glass of wine, and it's all
Good.
good. It's all good.
What is your
So,
advice? Like, why do you think in general people do that? I mean, why can't people have the, I mean, it might be a stupid or rhetorical question, but in general, in your experience, why do you think people are so quick to just to to assume and not want to learn the facts or want to get to know you for you and your work, your life's work, you know?
because it's easy. It's much easier to dislike someone,
Mm.
I think, than to like them. You know,
Right.
I'll do things or I'll go do a job or be around and they're like, "Oh my God, totally didn't expect you to be like this." Like, a lot of stuff, especially is all preconceived notions.
Right. And there's nothing you could do about it because
No.
whatever is written in the media, people don't realize is out of your hands. It's
Yes.
not.
And then all you can do is prove it all wrong if it's negative or live up to it if it's positive.
That's a positive outlook though. Right. You're
Well,
putting it in, right?
I mean, what can you do after all these years?
Yeah, totally.
All I can do is prove them wrong.
Did you ever how did you handle when you did get jobs and or did you ever feel like, not that it was because of your mom like you said, it may be the foot in the door, but did you ever, when was a point, let's rephrase the question, that you were so proud of yourself when you knew, oh, this was all me. This was all Melissa's hard work and Melissa's A to Z and
I don't know. I don't know. I've never been afforded that um privilege
mm,
in the press or within our business. Everyone's always like, it's and because we worked so well together. My mother used to say the most frightening, the most frustrating thing for her was that she knew I would never get credit. And that's why she was so vocal about giving me credit because she knew just by nature of our relationship and because of what we did, I would never get credit for it. And sadly, she's right. I
right,
still have to do all that. But you know what? I've learned how.
right.
I just know at one point you have to be like, this is my work.
I love that. Like you have to own it and not care what people think, no matter what.
But
That
of
is
course
something.
you do. Obviously we all have endless frustrations and, moments where you go like, why? I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. We all have those moments, but I have that. I go in the bathroom and lock the door and scream and I come out and go back to work.
Yeah, you don't post it on social media like some of
No,
them, right?
no, nobody, no, and nobody wants to hear it.
So that's great. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on like when people post on social and they say they're being real, but you said it really not clearly. No one wants to hear it. Talk to us a little bit about that. Like, should we not air our dirty laundry when we're upset on social?
Well, I think there's things that are positive too. Like I've been a mental health and suicide prevention advocate since I was 19. We didn't have social media then. So I'm always willing to talk about that. I'm always putting that out there. Um, so there are certain things that I think move the needle and it needs to be moved. But I can't buy into, you know, yeah, I don't need to know everything about everybody at all times. And also because social media puts so much pressure because these lives that people are posting ain't real.
Thank you. Oh my
They are
God.
not real.
It looks and seems really real sometimes that it's scary.
They talk a lot about that too, which is, people's lives are not as good as they show on Instagram.
Interesting. Yeah. We
You
forget
know?
that though, because we're
Yeah.
seeing it.
Oh, I was just looking at something and be like, I want to be in Saint Tropez, Poor me. And I'm like, oh, shut up. You just got back from vacation. Quit your bitching.
I know. I was looking at a Instagram that like a lot of these people are going to Greece and Saint Tropez, and I start crying, and my mom's like, "You should be grateful. There's people starving in the streets." And I'm like, "If you use that one more time," I'm like,
Yeah.
"My needs matter too, though. My Saint Tropez needs matter." You know?
But yeah, everybody this summer was in Saint Tropez or Greece.
Yeah, literally. I'm like,
And I'm like, I'm like, I want to be there. And I'm like, shut up. I just had a lovely vacation, the same vacation that my family takes every year, every end of July, beginning of August. We just got back. We had a wonderful time. Shut the fuck up.
where'd you guys go?
We go to Wyoming every summer.
Oh, I love Wyoming. It's such
Yeah,
a great place,
it
really,
is.
to
But
get away.
I'm just like, shut up. You just had
Right.
10 days in Wyoming. Quit whining.
Well, talking about, Instagram and TikTokers and social media these days, what would you and your mother say about two things? What's going on with all this pressure and competition of having the most followers and be getting, by the way, getting jobs based on having followers now, and also the fashion, the crop tops. My mom's having a heart attack. She is having a heart attack every second she sees the crop tops and the boobies out and the short shorts. I mean, I like it,
I
but talk to us about what your feelings are and what your mom would have thought together, because you guys had Fashion Police together.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the person.
Right.
If you're young and have a great body and aren't completely slutty in it, great. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, but you don't want to see, someone over, 30 wearing a crop top or
Right.
even 40. Let's say 40 now.
Real. Okay. Like the
You know, I
housewives.
I don't need to see in a crop top. I just don't, you know? You have to know w- what looks right.
I like
And
that.
trust me, I still wanna wear a crop top, but I don't, you know?
Even with a blazer, I feel like you could pull it off.
No, but only if you have, like, the high-waisted jeans. Like, I found a picture of me and one of my friends. My jeans are at my hip bones,
Hmm.
right? The inseam, the rise is, like, so short, and I have on a super cropped little peasanty blouse looking thing. And I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe I went out like that. But at the time, that was the look, and we all were in the right demographic to be wearing it. Now, if I'm going to wear a shorter top, you got to wear a high waisted skirt or high waisted jeans. You don't want, you know, your low slung jeans and a crop top. It's just not appropriate at a certain age,
Right. Right.
you
I
know.
love.
And I do worry about the over sexualization of girls too young.
Right.
It's too much pressure.
100%. I think that's good advice coming from you. By the way, Melissa, just real quick, it might end because Zoom is having issues
Yep.
in 10 minutes. But if it does, and I need a soundbite, can you just log right back on and we will finish it in the next 10 minutes as well?
Right. Yeah, I'm watching the time.
Okay. Um, okay, perfect. So I guess also, what would you think about Justin Bieber and Billie Eilish on that note, since they are younger, right? They are on the younger side.
Well, I mean, Justin Bieber, I think from day one, we all knew was going to implode at some point.
Right.
And, God bless him. He's walked through fire and come out the other side
Yeah.
and has become has developed a lot of self-awareness
Yeah.
about what his experience was. Does that mean it was right how he behaved? No. But the best you can hope for is that someone grows and learns. I think Billie Eilish is going to be fine. She's got such a strong family unit
Hmm.
behind her, between the brother always there and the parents and the whole thing. It seems she's got a very good head on her shoulders.
Yeah. 100%. Can you hear? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I love that answer, and that's a beautiful answer. So let's go talk now about your podcast, Melissa
Yes.
Rivers Group Text. Talk to us about why now, why did you start the podcast, and why is it called Group Text?
Okay. Why did I start it? Because it seemed like fun.
Right.
Um, It seemed like fun.
The obvious
It
answer.
it started out as being called group text because I have a bunch of different group texts with different groups of friends. And the one thing they all had in common was they were fun and funny, or if they were serious, they felt thought provoking. And I thought this would be a great podcast
Right.
because we're not, with podcasts, they try and put you in one lane.
Yes. I'm so happy you're saying this right now.
And
Yes.
my whole thing was, I don't live in one lane. And I'm not going to make my podcast live in one lane.
Right.
So it just, a lot of it just is what we're talking about. And if I have a celebrity, it's about having a conversation with them, not so much interviewing them.
Love
It's
that.
about listening and about sort of, organically following the conversation because you just don't know where it's going to go. And I think that's one of the reasons, besides that my mother was hilarious on the red carpet, was we listened. Half of being a good interviewer is listening.
It's true. Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, you should write a book about just interviewing skills 101. A lot of us could use it because podcasters sometimes think if they don't have a background, they could just, boop, I could just
No,
interview.
no, it's not so easy. Because if you're just going down your checklist of questions and you're not listening, you will get to all your questions by having an organic conversation.
Wow, I'll never forget that piece of advice.
But you also have to be interested in the person you're talking to.
To get that interview, right? To get that conversation.
Yes. And that's why, you have to find something, even someone you're not interested, you have to find something interesting about them. And there is something interesting about everybody.
Right.
There really is. But, sometimes you have to sort of look for that to not get to be able to connect with someone and not get your standard interview.
So true. I think that's why I think you're so fascinating because you've had so much that you've done that sometimes we don't even hear about. You know what I mean? That it's like,
Yeah.
wow, how did you get there? It's not even like, because it's not an easy answer. It's not because of just your mom or some of the jobs. I mean, what would you say is like the biggest obstacle you had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Being me.
Wow. Why? Like, what do you mean by that? I mean,
Meaning preconceived notions, everything we've already talked about,
right.
Assumptions, um, you know,
And how do
but
and you think that the way we can move on in general, so people, what would be your advice to people who
mm,
want to be successful in the entertainment industry? What would be your tips for them to focus on?
number one, you better love it because it is a lifetime of no. It's a
I'm like, yeah.
lifetime of no. And you better, you know, be able to do that. It doesn't mean you're not going to cry. It doesn't mean that you're not going to want to give up. It doesn't mean any of those things. But you have to be willing to realize that you'll get 1,000 no's before you get a yes. And it never, never, never stops. My mom used to always remind me, or her old thing was never forget Barbara Streisand at the height of her career could not get Yentl made
Wow, I didn't know that.
for like 7 or 8 years. She had to fight to get it made. And that was when she had all the power. If an actress gets offered a movie, chances are their first three choices turned it down. Unless you're in that super rarefied, Meryl Streep gets first crack. This one gets first reads. This one gets, you know what I mean? But in general, someone else turned it down. That's why you always see those articles about it could have been so and so, or this person turned it down. Yeah, because guess what? Maybe a dozen people in the world who are the first choice.
Wow, that's great advice. That's
And
great
that's what my
advice.
parents always remind me. It's a lifetime of no. It's a lifetime of insecurity. It's a lifetime of all that. So you better love it.
Amen to that. Can you
Yeah.
talk to us also about maybe a favorite guest you had on group text, or
Oh,
great conversation, maybe?
one of the most I've been very, very lucky. I did a whole little mini series within the podcast of the state of comedy. And I had a great time doing that, talking to some amazing comedians and people that I really, really enjoyed. I had Bob Saget and Jeff Ross and Dion Cole and some really, really, and very different opinions. This was during, COVID and all that. I just interviewed Summer Sanders at the 3 days before the Olympics ended.
Wow, that's
So
major.
it was fascinating, fascinating from her perspective, not also just about how sports have changed, how her life has changed, how she got into broadcasting. But one of the things that we talked about that was really interesting was all these sort of older Olympic stars like Summer, or remember Debbie Thomas or Eric Heiden, have all gone on. Like Eric Heiden's an orthopedist.
Right.
Debbie Thomas went back to school, and I think she's some sort of a doctor also. Like, it wasn't like you went and did this and then you had all the endorsements and that's all you were. Like, and to talk about sort of that whole shift in social media and the pressure now and how the pressure is different now. You weren't just coming in as, with in Summer's case, the NCAA champion. You know, that was her pressure. That was the expectation. And then when she was done, she went back to Stanford and became a student again.
That's fascinating.
So
So,
it was really interesting to hear her, especially with everything that went on with the mental health and all this coming out with the games. Fascinating.
fascinating. Yeah, we got to check that out. All the Chanel in the City audience right now, make sure you check out Melissa Rivers group text. It's on all podcast platforms. I mean, that's the interview everybody's been waiting for, because she has not done a lot of interviews, and she just came out being open about mental health. So what a win for that. I mean,
Yeah.
and I can't think of anyone else who can interview her but you. You know what I mean? Like, I can't think of anyone else who would do a great job having that conversation,
Well,
honestly.
thank you. But I mean, it was just so interesting because she's had such a long career and was one of the first women in broadcasting. And how did she get to be broadcasting on the for NBA? And so there was a lot. And she's a mom now. And we always talk about, are you a good sports parent?
Oh, what does that mean?
Meaning, I was a terrible sports parent. I was screaming, I was yelling, I was screaming at refs, like I was terrible. And I always want to know when I interview professional athletes, are they good sports parents? And
That's
they all say yes. And I don't believe half of them. It wasn't talking about Summer's mental health. We were talking more about about the conversation that was
right.
started by like Simone Biles and all these people coming out and saying, no, saying people don't understand the pressure.
Right. Right. Which is important to discuss.
Right. And, she was, very, we talked really in depth about what that's like, and how it's gotten so much harder and so much worse. And, you know, like I said, athletes back, they had more normal lives. Like I said, Debbie Thomas became a doctor, Eric Heiden became an orthopedic surgeon. Summer's gone on to have a career in broadcasting. It wasn't like, that the spotlight never turned off as it is now. And I think that's social media and the press, and it's a lot. It's a lot, but it was really interesting to hear an athlete's perspective.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like, what do you think needs to change in this industry with social media and the pressure, and as women, what needs to change for us to move forward and like get the respect, have our mental health under control, not feel this like enormous, like, I don't know, it's like everyone wants us to be like super women. It's like crazy. It's almost like perfect.
But I
Maybe.
don't think, I mean, that's not anything new.
Right.
It's just now it's very public
Right.
because
Exactly.
of social media and because of this. And I don't know, the more and more I think about social media, the more and more I dislike it.
Yeah.
But it's a fact of life and we deal with it. And there are things I enjoy. I'm not going to say I don't enjoy, you know, my silly posts and other people's fun posts. And I think there is a lot of good, but I think, we all have to kind of get a grip
Yeah.
on too much pressure on people and too much focus and too much of this and too much. And you look at someone like Person Mobiles, like I'm shocked that it took her as long to crack as it did.
Right. Right.
You are the face of the games. The world is watching and the world is waiting for you to see if you're going to mess up. It's not to see if you're going to succeed. They're waiting to see if you're going to mess up,
Yep. Which is the
you know?
hardest part. Yeah.
And that's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you too, like in terms of cancel culture, what are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people now it's getting worse. In my time, like 2013, I was on one reality show, didn't go anywhere, but I felt like I was canceled for the rest of my life. It's still hard for me to try to make people understand, hey, I have a podcast, I have other things going on. What are your thoughts about just like people being canceled and how do we get out of it? Like how do we let people understand like I'm sorry if I did something to hurt you, but you cannot cancel me forever. Like, you know,
I have a lot of I think the easiest thing for me to say is I think one of the things with cancel culture is some people deserve to get called out. My biggest problem with is when people are being canceled for things they've done really in the past. And I always use Kevin Hart as the example.
ooh,
When he got canceled in the Oscars and all that because of a routine he did however many years before, and it's taken out of context very often. So this is who he was then. And at that point, that was considered okay and funny.
right,
And I think a lot of cancel culture, but not when it's current, but when they go back into someone's distant past, not 3 weeks ago, not a year ago, when they should have known better, is you're not allowing people to grow and change and learn.
right. Yeah. I mean, do you
Don't
think
cancel me for something that I did 10 years ago because I am not the same person. And what you're saying is I'm not allowed to change and grow and must be held to today's standard when that wasn't the standard, however, 20 years ago.
right? Yeah, I hope we can make that. I just hope the public can try to grow and change along with artists and talent and understand that like an apology goes a long way and growing and changing goes a long way and it's very hard to come back from being canceled in general.
Right. But it also depends on how long ago
Right.
whatever you did was or whatever you said was. Like I said, I always use Kevin Hart as the example of this was something that at the time was funny and okay. And it was 10 years ago, whatever it was. It was when he was much younger. And now he is an actor and a comedian and this and that, and a completely different person. So basically, you're saying he wasn't you. He has to be. Could you imagine being held by the same? You're not any near the same person you were when you were 22.
Right, of course not. No way. Yeah.
And again, I think that's the biggest stumbling block with it. But there are certain things. There has to be more awareness. There has to be more of this. There has to be more of that. But again, we've all gotten so hypersensitive. And as Bill Maher puts it, there's a whole generation of snowflakes. And, life is tough. People have to toughen up a little.
Yeah, because
It
from your
doesn't, it,
yeah,
yeah, it doesn't mean that people should be insensitive or use terrible language or do terrible things. But we also have to understand that life's not necessarily, easy at times.
yeah. And people do have to toughen up. You're right. There is a
There
balance. There is a boundary.
there ain't a safe place. There ain't what is it? You're in your safe place or whatever at certain place. Like there's not that at work.
Right. Yeah, I know because it's like, and that's the thing. And I know in general, stand up, like when you're watching, I don't know if you realize, but the comedians are saying lately now it's hard for them to do stand up because what was once like when your mom, was doing it, it was acceptable, where now it's not to say
Right.
certain things. So it's going to be, I mean, I don't know what, we know what your thoughts are on that. I mean, how do we change that? Like,
I
what do
don't
you,
know.
we don't, right. We don't know how to change that. We just have to continue to see what goes and what doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I have to wrap it up
Yeah.
because my son is calling.
Okay, sorry. Okay, can
Hold
you
on
just
one
do,
sec.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let me call you back in 5 minutes, okay? Bye.
All right. So I wanted just to thank you so much, Melissa
Thank
Rivers,
you.
for being here. Where can everybody follow you?
At Melissa Rivers Official is my handle everywhere. And Melissa Rivers Group Text is everywhere you normally would find a podcast. Hey everyone, it's Melissa Rivers, and you are listening to my interview on Chanel in the City with Chanel Omari.